Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is The Local Live.
Hello, I'm Mike Witch, and you are watching The Local Live. Jackie Grosh is on assignment in China, but here with us, Alina Soriel.
Hello, Larchmont and Mamaroneck. Welcome to our 17th edition. I'm glad to be back.
As always, we're here to inform you about what's going on in our community.
Let's first take a look at what we have prepared for you tonight. Double Mamaroneck School Board meetings. We give you the highlights.
Larchmont meetings are officially back.
And the Mamaroneck Tigers baseball team makes our best play of the week.
Who is Anna Giordano? We'll tell you how she's helping our schools.
Why do movie and TV show set designers have Mamaroneck on their radar? Chatsworth Auction is in the spotlight.
And if you're looking for a new best friend, Sweetie needs a new home.
The Mamaroneck School Board District held 2 consecutive meetings on April 7th and 8th. A continuing discussion on the 2014-2015 school budget was the main subject of the evening.
We had a nice surprise, I guess, last week. We received our sewer tax bill. We get that once a year, the large part that comes from the town of Mamaroneck. And it was significantly lower than it had been due to the revaluation for next year's budget by $285,000. So that was a significant surprise that we got last week. We talked about the pre-K grant, and we're able to move the pre-K transportation back into the grant at about $60,000 that we will remove from the expenditure budget. Remember, pre-K is accounted for in a separate fund. It's our federal and state fund. So that's another $345,000 basically that we have reduced from the budget that we presented without really doing anything.
So if I could then just take the next step, certainly after we had extensive conversation about the value of our co-op camp, through the certainly generosity and the kindness of a community member, we have received word of a pledge for a donation to the Board of Education for the purposes of co-op camp in the amount of $200,000. It's an incredible commitment to our students in our community, and I certainly want to tonight recognize the generosity of that gesture. So.
With a full room at the second meeting, busing became once again the common issue that parents and community members addressed to the board.
A policy which gives you wide discretion to decide in future years which children will travel to school in the safety of a school bus and which will be forced to endure arduous and dangerous journeys to and from school. Although you've used that discretion to spare 6th through 8th graders in the next school year, you've stated that you will be reviewing and expanding the grades of students forced to take public transportation the following year. That was said yesterday. You've also received hundreds of letters and phone calls over the last 2 years opposing this policy. A few weeks ago, our coalition started a petition calling on you to meet your legal obligation under the law to continue to provide safe yellow school bus transportation to all eligible students, regardless of their grade. Our goal was to reach 250 signatures. Today, we are presenting you well over 900 names of the people who've signed this petition. No amount of savings justifies putting children's lives at risk, and especially not the pittance that you have identified. We urge you to remember your responsibility to your voters and to the children who are in your care by providing safe transportation for all students.
Additionally, it is important to mention that the board is seeking parents' input on a survey on their webpage. The question is, should the school board provide veterans with an alternative veterans exemption for school taxes? Remember that you have until April 21st to answer the survey and voice your opinion.
On Monday, April 7th, Larchmont Mayor Ann McAndrews and Village Trustees Marlene Colbert and Peter Finelli were sworn in and officially started their 2014 term.
I, Marlene Colbert,
I, Marlene Colbert,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and uphold the laws and ordinances of the Village of
and
Larchmont,
uphold the laws and ordinances of the Village of Larchmont,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the Office of Trustee of the Village of
of
Larchmont
the office of the trustee of the Village of Larchmont
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
which we know is wonderful.
Oh, thanks, Thea.
Congratulations.
Next, Trustee Peter Finelli.
I would like to invite my family up to join me at this moment.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Didn't know that was going to happen, did you?
Oh, that's terrific. You have a beautiful.
Bubba, do you want me to take some pictures with your
Do you
phone?
want to get around here?
On a step, a little taller.
The mics.
So you have 3 daughters here tonight.
3 daughters, my son is at school.
All right, it's my pleasure
My
to swear
pleasure
you
as well.
in. I, Peter Finelli,
I, Peter Finelli,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and uphold the laws and ordinances of the Village of Larchmont,
and uphold the laws and ordinances of the Village of Larchmont,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the Office of Trustee of the Village of Larchmont
of the Office of Trustee in the Village of Larchmont
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Congratulations. And the Honorable Mayor, it's my privilege, Ann, to swear you in for another term. I, Ann McAndrews,
I, Ann McAndrews,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and uphold the laws and ordinances of the Village of Larchmont,
and uphold the laws and ordinances of the Village of Larchmont,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the Office of Mayor of the Village of Larchmont
of the office of Mayor of the Village of Larchmont
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Let's go.
Well, thank you. First
Well,
of all,
those were the swearing-ins, but you can watch the entire meeting and other municipal and school board meetings at LMC TV's home webpage. That's www.lmc-tv.org, and watch on demand.
Now it's time for Mike Witch's In the Media segment. Let's see what stories are trending this week in our local media.
Nine Westchester neighborhoods, including our own, made the list of the top 25 richest in New York City suburbs. I read this in the Mamaroneck Daily Voice. It's based on a college professor's survey that explains as many of the city's high earners start families and seek more space, they move out to the suburbs surrounding the city. The Voice has a handy link to the story as well as the entire list and survey methodology. Speaking of surveys, our local public high schools are listed among the most challenging in the state. A new national study of public and private high schools conducted by the Washington Post, 17 schools in Westchester County are cited. Rhinebeck ranked 10th and Mamaroneck was number 15. As reported in The Voice, the ranking is by formula, including advanced classes as well as the percentage of students from low-income families and the percentage of graduates who passed at least one college-level test during their high school years. You can go to The Voice for the details of the formula and the rankings. Robin and Josh Salis and their 2 children of Larchmont say they liked Salsa Fresca restaurant because it gives Mamaroneck a fresh and environmentally friendly place to eat. They were pictured in the Daily Voice at this new eatery that opened last week. Salsa Fresca, which also has locations in Yorktown and Bedford Hills, offers 6 or 7 signature dishes, but also lets customers build their own burrito, quesadilla, taco, nachos, or salad with everything prepared on site, nothing frozen, say the owners. The new restaurant is on Mamaroneck Avenue. Can you spell Susaurus? Do you even know what it means? Well, the team from At Home on the Sound answered correctly, winning the recent Larchmont Library Spelling Bee. As reported and photographed in The Loop, the winning team consisted of Reverend Dorothy Green, Barbara Gray, and Margaret Weinstock. At Home on the Sound is a nonprofit organization providing services, transportation, and support to the older residents of Larchmont and Mamaroneck who want to remain in their own homes. And Susaurus? Well, it's a soft whispering sound. So says Webster's. The April edition of the Larchmont Ledger is packed with news, including a great picture of someone I used to work with at Mamaroneck High School. She's Ellie Fredston. Ellie will be honored on May 1st at the Spring Gala of At Home on the Sound. A longtime Larchmonter, Ellie is a founding board member of At Home on the Sound, and she's also volunteered with Friends of the Larchmont Library, the Student Aid Fund, the Center for Continuing Education, the Sheldrake Conservation Area, and the Larchmont Coastal Zone Management Committee. The gala will also include a tribute to volunteer coordinator Pat Hatchie of Mamaroneck, who has been with the At Home on the Sound since its doors opened 4 years ago. Finally, I was saddened to hear that Archie Andrews has died, or will die this summer, when Life with Archie comic book series puts out its final issue, number 36, in mid-July. Archie Comics is based in Mamaroneck. The company says Archie will die while saving the life of a friend in the series that chronicled his future after high school and college. Says publisher John Goldwater, quote, Archie has and always will represent the best in all of us. He's a hero, good-hearted, humble, and inherently honorable. For the full story, go to the Larchmont Patch. And with a tear in my eye, those are some of the stories that caught my attention this week in the media.
Dude, there's a bunch of zombies outside.
What?
There are zombies in the front lawn. It's Z-Day.
Well, what do we do?
Let's check out the news.
I'm here on Halstead Avenue, where the Mamaroneck Police Force has already begun to crack down on the zombie menace. Get out of my shot! Residents are advised to stay inside, lock their doors, and wait it out. Back to you in the studio.
Looks like we're gonna be okay.
I'm Maura Carlin, and you're watching The Local Live.
And I'm Rebecca Berman. Welcome to our 17th episode.
As on every Thursday night, we want to welcome you to our live segment. Rebecca will be reading our live tweets and emails.
That's right, Maura. If you're watching us now and want to go live with your questions or comments, our Twitter account, email address, and phone number are displayed on your screen. So join our conversation.
Tonight we have on our show a special interview with Helen Rafferty. Now, you may know Helen or recognize her name from the Mamaroneck Library Expansion Project, but she's also the Executive Director of Project Rebirth, which includes the film Rebirth and the video Rebirth at Ground Zero, which will greet visitors at the soon-to-open National September 11th Memorial and Museum. Helen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We are going to show in a minute a preview of the films. Why don't you tell us what it's about?
Rebirth is the story of 5 people whose lives were forever changed on September 11th, 2001. And it's an amazing journey they take.
And let's go to the videotape.
All news, all the time. This is 1010 Wins. Earl.
Good morning. 64 degrees at 8 o'clock. It's Tuesday, September 11th. I'm Lee Harris. Here's what's happening. It's primary day, and the polls are open.
You can actually hear the glass cracking.
A plane has crashed into the World Trade Center.
Big flames coming out of it, black smoke.
Oh my God, the building fell!
I remember just talking to my dad and him just saying, I don't think she made it.
That is the second tower.
And she looked at me through her tears, said to me, tell me he's alive. I couldn't because I knew.
And I watched it as it came down.
It was chaos. Everyone just knew there really isn't no one alive now.
I'm still having surgery done. They don't know what's wrong with me.
I'm just angry at a lot of people.
And then I'm caught between having to move on, but I don't want to.
In the first dream, all that happens is I just go up to her and I just hug her.
I can't do anything that I used to do. I feel useless.
I still haven't cleaned out his drawers. Can't do it. Every once in a while, I get that moment where I just kind of look and I say, oh, I remember that shirt.
I felt horribly guilty. I should have been there with him in death.
I don't think I even started to heal yet.
It was a very, very painful decision to start dating again. It's such a betrayal.
I really, really miss her. I really do.
So I'm learning to cope with everything I have.
This is my brother's fireman coat that I wore down to the site on 9/11.
I don't know what fate has in store for me.
I guess that's really when you can start coming to terms with something like that. When you start letting go of the anger.
I have a completely new life. I have a family now.
They gave me a facelift for free. I was giving a second chance.
It's all going to be good at the end of the day. We'll teach our children what had happened, and the world will be a better place when we finish.
Helen, I have to tell you, every time I watch that, I get chills.
Me too, still.
Still.
Yeah.
So what is the message that Project Rebirth hopes to send?
I guess the main message is that even through the toughest experience, even through the worst tragedy or disaster, human beings have an amazing capacity to heal, to grow stronger, and to help each other start looking towards the future with hope again. And it takes a long time, and that's why we needed to do a really long time-lapse project to show exactly how that happens. But that's a message a lot of people need to hear.
Well, let's before we get more into that part, let's talk about how it was done, how the time-lapse project was done. People were selected. There were 2 pieces of it. Why don't you tell us?
Sure. The film, on the one hand, is we think the largest time-lapse photography project ever in history. We had 14 cameras all around the Ground Zero site, everywhere from the top of the American Express building to the graveyard at St. Paul's Church. They filmed with time-lapse photography 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all through the year, in all weather, the rebuild of the site. So we have, I don't even know how much footage, hundreds and hundreds of hours of beautiful time-lapse photography of that process. At the same time, our director, Jim Whitaker, followed the lives of these people who had been so impacted by the day. Not that we all weren't, everyone. It was everyone's traumatic day, but for those that lost a family member or a fiance or were grievously injured, this was a truly challenging journey. And he followed them year after year, getting together with them every year around the anniversary of 9/11 and talking to them about their lives, and then actually getting into their lives and being there when a child was born, when an anniversary was celebrated, when someone graduated from school. So it started out with kind of just a one-on-one talking head interview, and gradually, as our budget frankly grew, we were able to actually go and follow these people in their lives and give this really complete record of their journeys.
And how will this be used at the new memorial and museum?
Well, we've created a centerpiece exhibit for the museum. It's called Rebirth at Ground Zero, and it's a 10-minute immersive experience where you watch the site build up around you through time-lapse photography, while our score, which is by Philip Glass, plays in the background, and you hear the voices from the people in our film kind of highlighting what you're seeing as a journey of rebuilding and rebirth. It's absolutely beautiful.
And it's really a centerpiece exhibit.
Very much so. Alice Greenwald, the director of the museum, had said that it's the first part of the visitor's journey through the museum where hope starts to appear. Just a glimmer, but it's still a much-needed glimmer of hope by the time you've experienced this museum.
And that's really the message to come out of this, hope, and that there is a life after.
Yes, absolutely.
And you have other ways of using it.
We were told pretty early on in our process of making the film that what we were building was the largest and most complete video record of human beings going through the process of grieving, being traumatized, going from despair slowly but surely to a place of hope for the future, and really coming out in many ways stronger than before the event that changed their lives so dramatically. So we had people from teachers to college professors to therapists to people that work with wounded and traumatized veterans saying, you've got to take this film and you've got to do something with it to help people that are on a journey of their own through grief, through loss, through injury. So those are the kind of programs and curriculum that we started to develop.
So you're using it with other groups of people who have to deal with things.
Absolutely. We work with the USO, with the U.S. Army. We work with the Girl Scouts. We work with Columbia and Georgetown and Pace universities. We work with a number of organizations and individuals that help people who are in a process of recovery and rebuilding their lives.
And the people who were featured in the video, first, did they know each other?
Some of them did. Tim and Tanya, 2 of the 5 that you saw in that film, already knew each other, and actually one introduced the other to the director. The director, put some messages out into the 9/11 community, which was a very tight community, people holding on to each other after that if they had lost family, if they were first responder families. So word got around, this guy's trying to tell the story here because our children need to know this story. Their children need to know this story. And gradually we found 5 and then 9 people, because we have 4 additional subjects who also have made films with us, agreed to tell their stories.
And have all of them made it through?
I think you'd have to watch the film and come to your own decision about where everybody gets to. Everybody absolutely gets to somewhere else than where they started out. They all make an amazing journey. That's all, because I don't want to be the one to judge, oh, this one was this successful, this one's that successful. They're all everyday, ordinary people, and they all have rebuilt their lives in different ways. So yeah, I would say they all come to a much greater place of hope for the future than when you first meet them.
Okay. More philosophically, what do you see as the long-term effect of 9/11 on this community and just this general area?
Right. Well, I'm a New Yorker, and my father was a New York City firefighter. A lot of first responders in my family. I think we live in a more kind of worried and wary world, and I think that maybe Americans have lost some of our comfort level with that we'd always be safe at home, that we were uniquely safe in America. We found out the hardest way you can that that's not true. But I think there's a way to be hopeful while still being wise to the realities of the world. So I think people are still healing from 9/11. I think
all these years later.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a long journey. But
And
I think
even
people
those
are
not directly affected.
Oh, it's
changed
so
the
many
psyche.
people. You can be in a bar in Tokyo or in a park in London, or the minute someone finds out you're a New Yorker, that's what they want to talk to you about. And they will talk about 9/11 and what it made them feel. People in Italy, apparently, it has so emotionally resonated with Italy that all over Italy, on the anniversary of September 11th, there's memorial services and concerts and movies. So It did touch the world. I know sometimes Americans feel like people just don't get how bad this was, but my experience of talking to people in other countries and other places is it's still very much in people's minds and in people's hearts.
Well, obviously it touched you, but what made you get involved in this project? Especially as you were also working on the library at that time.
Right. I'm not good if I'm not busy. It's just me. My husband was called by some of the LA folks, Jim Whitaker and some of his cohorts that knew all about how to make a film, but they didn't necessarily have all the contacts and the logistics kind of know-how to work around the Wall Street area. My husband worked on Wall Street, knew that part of the world, was supposed to make a couple of phone calls, talk to a few people. Before you know it, he had taken over the not-for-profit organization that was making the film and was neck deep in it for 8 to 10 years. He's still neck deep in it. He's still very involved. I'm more involved now. But, you know, I couldn't help but be drawn in. And, you know, like I said, our family's a lot of cops, firemen, first responders, so we knew so many people that we felt their story has to be told.
What's your strongest memory of 9/11?
You know, there's so many of them, but the first one that comes to me, and a lot of people have said this to me as well, is what a beautiful blue sky there was that morning. That's the first mental image I have of the day. And then there's much worse ones, but that's the first one that always comes to mind.
I think many of us have that. It was a spectacular morning.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So the museum, Memorial Museum, opened on May 21st.
Yes.
Are you involved in that part of the project besides the installation?
Luckily not the construction, because I did that, been there. We will be working with the museum, of course, to make sure our exhibit's totally ready to go. Our director's actually coming in from LA in a couple of weeks to do final sound checks, and we will be there for the opening. What we're really excited about is the programs that we'll be working with the museum to develop for education and historic preservation, and just to keep the museum a living, dynamic, and evolving institution.
So what kinds of programs are you coming up with?
Programs that utilize the film content to start discussions about rebuilding communities after disaster, about how do you preserve history and make sure that our children know this is something that happened to us, this was here, this is not a story in a book, you're there, you are right there where it happened. So kind of to keep the memory and the history of our country at this time alive, and to look at what the people who are part of our film project went through and where they got to, and draw all the lessons we can about recovery and strength and healing and rebuilding in the face of whatever comes our way, because it is still an uncertain and chaotic world. There's more challenges ahead. We need to be as ready for them as we can be.
This idea of having cameras as it's being rebuilt everywhere, was this one of the first projects? Because now it's not so shocking that someone would put cameras in as they were putting up a building so you could see it. Was this the beginning of that idea?
I think this was the beginning of the idea you could do it at that scale. I mean, ground zero is huge.
Huge.
I mean, we have cameras in New Jersey, on buildings in New Jersey, looking over the water at the ground zero site, and we, you know, on top of the Fulton Firehouse, the American Express building, they're everywhere. And just the logistics of changing out the film and keeping these cameras going day after day, year after year, was daunting. But you know, that's the project we set for ourselves when we started, and we got it done. And we'll soon be, believe it or not, finally decommissioning our cameras and starting to take them down, and that's going to be kind of an emotional moment too, you know. They've been toughing it out for 12 years.
Well, the technology has probably also changed, and cameras have gotten smaller since you installed them.
Well, yeah, although the cameras we use are these big, old-fashioned cameras because they were so tough and they could, you know, humidity, freezing, heat, weather, they were able to handle them all extraordinarily well because they kept filming.
Cameras going into the museum?
Some of them will be in the museum. Some of them will be donated to schools, you know, film schools and the like. Some of them hopefully will auction off to the highest bidder for a lot of money. Keep doing what we're doing.
Well, so the ground zero portion of Project Rebirth is sort of coming to an end or to fruition.
Right.
Where does Project Rebirth go now?
We're actually as busy as we've ever been, if not busier. We've been really fortunate in attracting partners like the USO, the Army, fire departments across the country, the Girl Scouts. We're running a program where Girl Scout troops and elementary schools all over the country are writing letters of hope for children who have been impacted by the Philippine typhoon, Haiyan. So we have this giant, like 2,000 strong basket of letters that we're going to be delivering to schools in the Philippines in the summer to kind of show these kids in the Philippines that the kids who lived through Sandy and Katrina and Moore, Oklahoma, are sending them these thoughts that you can survive. The letters are adorable. We have them on our Facebook page, one or two every week, and these kids say things like, "We lost everything too, but we're okay, and you'll be okay too." And that's a message that's worth jumping through some hoops to get out.
And where would one find this on Facebook?
We're Project Rebirth on Facebook, Project Rebirth on Twitter, and exciting news, at least for me, we're debuting our new website tomorrow. We should start to go live, and that's www.projectrebirth.org.
Okay.
So just put in Project Rebirth, we come up pretty quick.
Now, we were talking earlier, and you were telling me that there are some of your 5 to 9 subjects have actually taken this experience and kind of made it a life mission. Tell me more about that.
Tanya, who is the young woman who lost her fireman fiance that day, she now runs workshops for people who've been widowed and are going through that journey. And I didn't know it until I started to look at what she was doing. There's some 800,000 people a year in the United States alone that go through the journey of widowhood. These workshops she runs, she shows her film, and then she said, you know, I could tell people how bad I looked 3 months after I lost my fiance or 6 months after, but I show them the film and they believe it and they get it and they see themselves there. And they're like, oh, I don't look that bad, look at her. You know? And she's like that, that's Tanya. Tim, who is the fireman who wasn't there when the rest of his fellow firefighters went down, he teaches a history class via Skype with history teachers that show the film to high school students and then say, wouldn't you love to talk to one of those people that is in the film? The kids inevitably say, yeah. And then suddenly Tim appears and they have a interactive conversation back and forth. He's also very involved with recovering veterans and wounded first responders and activities that we do for them. So yeah, they're all, and Charles, who's a gentleman who's in one of the short films, he's coming down with me to a camp that we've designed for at-risk African-American youth with the 100 Black Men of Virginia. And we're finding that a lot of the issues and the challenges that some of our veterans in recovery are facing that have used our programs, these at-risk youth kids, they're kind of facing the same challenges, developing a strong sense of self, developing a sense of community and of belonging and of hope for the future. So we're doing this summer camp, and one of our film participants will be down there saying how he went from being, kind of not knowing where he was going in his life to going down and volunteering at Ground Zero, and now he is a volunteer with the Red Cross all over the country.
What about the kid who lost his mother and his father?
That's Nick. Yeah, Nick is, it's interesting, and a lot of people say Nick's story really, really resonates with them because you kind of watch Nick grow up. He was
You could see
really
that from
young.
the snippet.
Yes, and he's still Nick, but he's a man now. So for him, it's been kind of the most dramatic journey away from where he starts in the film to where he is today. And they're all, every one of them is a really unique person simply because they gave this amazing gift of their lives, of their journey to the world. It's a brave thing to do.
Any of them regret it?
Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm sure, and they've expressed regret, and then they've come back and said, but I'm so glad I did it. And then, it's, you make your choices, and then you
So no
you
one
work with
they
them.
didn't back out once they
No,
got
they
into
were
it?
they were stalwart. They all stuck with us for over 8 years of filming.
That's a long time.
It is a very long time. And it's harder as your life moves on, as things become more complicated in your life, not less. It seems to happen to all of us. But they still made the time to come back and keep talking to us.
And we appreciate you making the time to come in and
thank you.
show us the video and talk about it. That's Project Rebirth. You could probably just Google it or Bing it, but on Facebook, Twitter,
Yes.
and the website.
And tomorrow, our brand new website should launch, and pretty excited about that.
So thank you, Helen Rafferty, for coming in and talking to us. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Rebecca, for
You're
joining me.
welcome.
And we'll see you next time.
Hi, I'm State Senator George Latimer, and I encourage you to watch every week the local live. I was going to say something like, I live in Rye, but if I lived in Larchmont and Mamaroneck, I would watch the local live every week. And I just remind. Thank you.
25 bags of garbage. That's how much lunchroom waste is produced in one day in a school of just 1,000 students. Ana Giordano is changing that. Georgine Castillo has the special report.
Recycle the garbage people, I think will turn it into new things. When we go and throw it away, we're wasting food. We can make more stuff, not using as much, just reusing.
From a just throw it away attitude to recycling for the future, Trinity Elementary School is doing their part for the environment.
This is just one of the schools in the 6 districts already participating in the source separating recycling system envisioned by Ana Giordano.
I was quite shocked to see that a school of 1,000 kids generates 18 gallons of leftover liquid. 18 gallons is very heavy. So if you look at that per year, is about 30,000 pounds of liquid that is being treated as garbage and is being hauled away with fossil fuels as garbage and is being paid for as garbage disposal. 30,000 pounds a year out of one school.
With waste management costing annually $650,000 just in New Rochelle, figuring out other methods of disposing of waste can not only help the environment, but everyone's pockets.
Having lots and lots of food left over. 50% of the weight of the garbage. A school of 600 kids will produce 150 pounds of food left over every day. So we're paying for this to be then treated as garbage. And food is actually organic waste, which we could compost and use as black gold.
This led Ms. Giordano to push for a source separating system in schools, where students separate their own lunchroom waste into categories, instead of just throwing it away in one bin.
Very simple process because it's not like 100 different materials. It's either a milk carton or a juice box. They go in one category. Or it's a bottle or can, goes in a different category. Or it's a juice pouch, goes in the third category. Those are the 3 possible drink containers that these kids have. So it's a very simple process. Empty, sort.
Emptying and sorting. It's been 4 years since Ms. Giordano approached schools with this system, and it has already reached more than 17 schools and still growing.
It's a part of what we do here every day at Trinity. It's part of our PBIS program, really understanding how important recycling is in regards to behavior and really becoming a good citizen. So we start educating students at the age of kindergarten. So by the time they go through to 5th grade, they understand the importance about recycling.
Like anything else, it was just like seatbelts. When you first were asked to put your seatbelt on, it was a little uncomfortable, but then it became a natural progression. And so now, the students who, when I began, were in 3rd grade are now my seniors, my 5th graders going over to the middle school. And the kindergartners, 1st and 2nd, 3rd and 4th, 5th graders here have seen it. So they've lived it for 3 years, so it's really natural.
Ms. Giordano, with the help of school officials, has not just stopped with the store and separating system, but some schools are now starting to use compostable trays, encouraging students to bring reusable food containers, and now are working on organizing ways to bring organic waste to the appropriate composting stream.
The way to deal with this program, with this problem of disposability, is to organize and manage what goes into our schools. Because if we can organize that, we can much better manage what comes out of our schools.
I'm Georgine Castillo reporting for LMC-TV.
In sports this week, the Mamaroneck Tigers baseball team trailed rival White Plains by a run heading into the game's final inning. They rallied to tie it up and put a runner on third for Andrew Somer in this week's LMC Varsity Sports Play of the Week.
You get one re-entry in high school.
Grounded to third, gets by!
Ball game! A walk-off win for the Mamaroneck Tigers off the base hit by Andrew Somer. What a scene at Manchester Field as the Tigers pile up on the game's hero, Andrew Somer.
Can you guess which TV show was filmed on Mamaroneck Avenue? In this week's Spotlight, Ashley Ballone features Chatsworth Auction.
Chatsworth Auction has been in Mamaroneck since 1938. Let's take a look inside to see what the store is all about. Sam Lightbody is the owner of Chatsworth Auction.
Well, Chatsworth originally started out as a moving and storage company, gosh, in the 1920s and 30s, and it evolved into a used furniture store and then an auction company. It was originally in New Rochelle, briefly in Larchmont, where it picked up the name Chatsworth. And my grandfather moved into this building around 1938, and we're still here.
Did you know that Chatsworth is used as a big resource for major set designers in the TV and film industry? TV shows such as Hostages, Boardwalk Empire, and Louie have come to Chatsworth looking for props, but that's not all.
Set decorators will come in and they'll take a look at what we have here. They'll take some pictures, and then what they do is they send me the pictures and get stuff together. We'll put a package deal together for them. Or they'll call and they'll say, listen, I need a sideboard from the 1930s. Do you have anything? So I'll take a couple of photos and I'll email them those, and they'll say, great, let me have this one. And they'll send the truck to pick it up.
Any TV shows or movies in particular?
Well, we had Hostages actually filmed here this year. We just did Wolf of Wall Street, and there are 2 movies that are coming out this summer, Boy Choir and Run All Night.
After 90 years in business, Chatsworth includes 5 levels, each at 20,000 square feet with showrooms. They have everything from dining room sets and grand pianos to chandeliers and china cabinets.
People call us, from all around Westchester, even in Fairfield and in New York City, tri-state area, and I go to their homes and we buy it. I mean, a lot of people are moving or downsizing, and they're changing their furniture and they want to sell the stuff.
So now you know why TV and movie producers have Mamaroneck on their radar. Chatsworth Auction, guilty. For the Local Live, I am Ashley Ballone signing off.
Guys, you're watching the Local Live. Stay tuned.
Woo.
Yeah.
Special Needs Animal Rescue and Rehabilitation Center brings us this week's Pet of the Week. Sweetie is a 12-week-old lab mix who loves belly rubs and to play all day. She's extremely smart and aims to please. Within 1 week, she had already learned her name, how to sit, and where to go potty. She's great with children, dogs, and cats. Her best friend is the cat in her current foster home. Sweetie is very docile and submissive. She would be great around small children and probably other pets. She truly lives up to her name and is a complete sweetheart.
Oh, how cute. As we told you last week, we have a new segment brought to us from the Mamaroneck Library. Let's see what Susan Riley, the director, what her book recommendation is for this week.
My name is Susan Riley, and I work at the Mamaroneck Public Library. My latest favorite book is called The Orphan Train by Christina Baker Klein. This book is a quick read that delves into a largely forgotten era in American history when orphaned or abandoned children were shipped out to the Midwest to live with new families. A quick signature on a piece of paper is all it took for a child to be given to strangers, and while it often resulted in a new loving family, sometimes the orphan child became a virtual servant. The format of The Orphan Train is a parallel story of the life of 9-year-old Irish immigrant Neve, who is renamed Dorothy and then renamed Vivian, and how her life intersects over 70 years later with foster teenager Molly, who has to perform community service cleaning out Vivian's attic after stealing a book from the local library. As the 2 women, 91-year-old Vivian, wealthy but largely alone, and 17-year-old Molly slowly unpack the boxes in the attic and sort through Vivian's keepsakes and treasured possessions, they discover that they really aren't very different at all. The book moves between contemporary Maine and Depression-era Minnesota, and it's a powerful and emotionally involving tale that will satisfy readers who enjoyed The Language of Flowers by Vanessa Diffenbach.
Thank you, Susan. And as you probably figured out, that book is an audiobook in the Mamaroneck Library. Well, Alina, we've gotten to the end of our show. Thank you for watching us.
Remember, if you want to get involved and watch old episodes of our show, go to www.lmc-tv.org/thelocallive.
And remember, we're a group of volunteers, and we'd like to let students and broadcasting aficionados to help us make community news. We want to let them help us make community news.
Don't
Alina?
forget to follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. Tell us what you think and give us your story ideas.
Stay classy, Larchmont. Be friendly, Mamaroneck. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now.
Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is The Local Live.